Hey everyone, so this is going to be an update to my Unity game project titled Onions Reduce Aggro. If you haven't been following this series, this is an RPG hero diner game. So it's a food prep game where all the customers are RPG archetypes. So the reason why there haven't been many updates lately is because at this point of the game, or the game development, I should say, there is very little accomplished despite a lot of time being committed to it. And that's because at this point you're spending a lot of time basically playing the game to get up to the point in which you're trying to test. That to make sure the game works, you really can't jump ahead. If you do, you might not get the kind of interactions that you'd expect. And so you wind up spending a lot of time just playing, trying to get to what you're trying to test. So that's why it's slowed down recently. And the other bottleneck is because the assets are being bought from the Unity store, I basically have to wait to see what assets have been released. And lately, there haven't been any ones that I thought was really fitting for this game. There's been a few, and I've done a couple videos about those. But basically, that's the other bottleneck is waiting on those assets. But I do think that this is very close to being early access, not quite yet. Anyways, so there's been sound effects added. So if you click on a button, get like a microwave beep. This is actually a duplicate of the kitchen. So there's now two separate kitchen scenes. One is for the tutorial. That way it made it easier to control. And then the other kitchen is when it's the normal gameplay loop. And in this kitchen, there's a lot of foolproofing that's been done. So for instance, I can't click on these yet. And even when I can click on them, I can't click on them in the wrong order. Also, if you notice, it doesn't say start week down here because I don't want to inundate them with too much functionality at once. I want them to have focus on what we want them to have focus on, and that's specifically the tutorial. So that's why certain things have been shut off. Like if you notice, we don't have the stats either. They really don't need to know about that yet. So you're easing them into the different functionality. Okay, so press space to continue, and now you can click on these, and again, you cannot click on these in the wrong order. So we have to do the order that they say. And now once you follow the instructions, then you get the Start Week button. And then they tell you to click on it to proceed. So that's the first part of the tutorial, showing you how to make a menu item. This is the second part of the tutorial where she then walks you through how the customers that show up will be based upon the menu items you offer. Therefore, the wider range of menu items, the more different adventurers who will show up. And then when she finishes saying what she says and she places her first order, you'll see a little pop-up window giving instructions of how to actually make the order. Because again, this is the point in which you're taking what you know as a developer and communicating it to the player, because there wasn't really any kind of meaningful instructions for this part. And so it says use tab key to move, then assemble the ingredients bottom to top, and then when completed, click on the plate to save. Probably should increase the delay on that a little bit. It gets deleted a little bit too soon. Now, right now, this is driven by time, so what's going to happen is another person will probably show up, and it'll say Tuesday, even though she's still standing here, depending on how quickly I do this. So obviously, that I would want to tighten up because that would suggest that she's been standing here all night. So I was a little bit concerned about having there only being one type of meal for the first week, although obviously the week is going to be very quick. I went back and played some Hot Dog Hot Shot, which, as I've mentioned before, is the game that I really had in mind when I designed this overall gameplay loop. And I noticed that on their first day or session, whatever you want to call it, there was only one meal also. It was just a plain hot dog. So there is precedent for that, where you have a very streamlined first session, and that it's not until later that they add more to it. So right now, this is set up in a denominated by week. And then it's at the beginning of the next week that you return to the kitchen, and then you can make new menu items. And right now I don't have an ability to delete something that was put there in error, so that's something that will have to be added to before this goes live. And right now there really isn't any kind of consequence of any kind. I could serve that right now and she would go away. So there really isn't any kind of control. In the early days of development, I did indeed have there be a certain amount of cash that you get, whether it, if it's right, you get a certain amount and how quickly. If it's wrong, they would probably give you just the minimum amount. So this was also one of the discussions as far as should there be a fail condition? And if so, what would it be? Do you have to redo the week? If you serve people the wrong meal, is there an overall satisfaction rating? And if you drop below a certain number, is that when you have to redo the week? So that's the thing, whether or not there should be a fail condition, because you want there to be. This certainly isn't meant to be a reflex-based game. It's meant to be more casual, more almost slice of life. But there still needs to be certain rules, or else there's really no effort at that point. It almost just plays itself. So I still have to determine what kind of fail condition there would be. And again, it might not be a fail condition. It may just be you don't progress per se. And the main progression that we said was the idea of unlocking new classes. And this might cut off as I'm cooking this because, again, it's currently based on time, so I'll have to tweak that so the day doesn't end until they've been served. But I got it in time. And then you come back to the kitchen, and as you can see, cheese and bacon has automatically been unlocked. So there you go. So that is the main gameplay loop from kitchen to diner, back to kitchen, rinse and repeat. And so that's where we stand now as far as the what the game has. Now, if I were to proceed, and I won't do it now because I don't want to drag out the video, but if I was to make like a cheeseburger or a bacon cheeseburger, what would happen is there's several other classes. There's warriors, there's assassins, there's a few others that I've purchased. So those would indeed get unlocked. It feels a bit haphazard at the moment, so I need to tighten that up before I release this as early access. Once I do, so tightening up exactly what gets unlocked when is probably the last thing, or should I say the final thing that I need to do before I post this on itch.io. And then the full version, so that will be the early access version. The full version will then be to replace the automatic receiving of new ingredients with more RPG elements, and that ultimately there'll be a vendor or vendors offering you various ingredients, and then you, since you're in charge of the facility, you get to choose what you want to make. Like, for instance, maybe you don't want to bother with cheeseburgers or bacon cheeseburgers. Maybe you want to go right into salads. Maybe you want to go right into hot dogs, because I've added those as well. And so you could have different vendors offering different wares, and you only have just so much money to commit to one of those vendors and what they can give to you. So there'll be this whole RPG element to it, and effectively you become, even though you're playing the game, you're an NPC because you're the one who's giving people quests to accomplish. So it's like we flip the scripts. The heroes are the NPCs, and the NPCs are now the players. So again, depending on how deep we want to go into the whole RPG aspect, but I do think it makes sense to do that, to rather than just receive the ingredients, that it's something that you have to choose and you have to order. And as long as there's choice, I think it would be good functionality. If there's only one vendor and one ingredient, there's really no choice. That's window dressing. Yes, you did a little bit of skinning of RPG on top of it, but you haven't really added in any kind of choice. So if I'm going to do that, I'm going to do it right, and there will be either multiple vendors or one vendor who says there's multiple places I can hunt in. Depending where I hunt depends on what you get. And so again, the choice could be yours as the game player about, do you want to go deeper into one type of meal or go entirely onto a different type of meal? Again, salads, hot dogs, BLTs, whatever. Okay, so I think that's where we stand. Feel free to put your comments and your suggestions, and I appreciate everyone's support and ideas that they've contributed to this. And definitely in the home stretch, like I said, it just slows way down because you spend so much time um, playing versus actually coding. Because I went through that whole, whatever this video is going to be, like 12 minutes or so, and I only found one missing thing, and that is the ability to empty a plate when you accidentally put the wrong thing on it. Because the only thing that you can do is serve it. You can't toss it. Okay, so I think that should do it. I hope you found this interesting, and please do enjoy the rest of your day.